Welcome to the Breakthrough to Brilliance podcast, where we have inspiring and insightful conversations about breaking free from life's biggest challenges to find fulfillment and purpose. I am your host, Seema Giri, an international speaker, best-selling and award-winning author, book writing mentor, and publisher. I bring you real-life stories of healing and transformational journeys so that you know that you can create life on your own terms. Our heart-centered guests are the everyday heroes that you find in your backyard, from mothers to sisters to friends to entrepreneurs and authors. Join us to hear their positive and powerful stories so you too can learn to live with purpose and joy. Welcome to Breakthrough to Brilliance podcast. I'm so happy to be here with you for another amazing episode. I am your host, Seema Giri, and today we are being joined with this special guest who is the co-author in our recently #1 international best-selling book, The Art of Leadership. Amy, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast. It's so wonderful to have you.
Thank you, Seema. I'm glad to be here.
So, before we get started with this amazing interview with you, Amy, we're going to do a quick grounding meditation and then get started so we can be here in the present, in the now, with our listeners and with each other.
Very nice.
So let's close our eyes and get comfortable in our seat. Take a big diaphragm inhale and exhale. And as you exhale, I want you to just let go of any tension, any worry, anything that you have at this moment. And just let it go. It's not serving you in this moment. With your next inhale in, inhale peace, and let go of any kind of stress, anxiety, anything. And just feel into your seat. Relax your shoulders, your neck, your entire body. And just be in this moment. With your next inhale, I would like you to bring your awareness to your heart. And you might want to put your hand over your heart to create that awareness. And I would like you to bring a memory that was an amazing, wonderful, beautiful memory. A happy moment. It can be from any time period in your life. It can even be from today. And just take that in. And I want you to relive this moment as if you're living it for the very first time. Imagine the ambiance, the feeling you had, the feeling of joy and bliss. Think of who you were with. Maybe it was your family and friends or that significant other. And perhaps it was time alone just for you. And really embody that feeling. Next, I would like you to bring your awareness to the top of your head where a crown chakra is and think of a second happy moment. Again, it can be from any time period of your life. It can even be today. Sometimes we're always looking at other timelines and forget that we have today. Relive this moment as if you're living it for the very first time. Again, think of where you were, what was the occasion, who were you with, and feel like you're there, right there with them. I'm sure it's bringing a wonderful smile to your face right now. Next, I want you to, now that we have our mind and heart connected, I want you to open yourself to the possibilities of what new ideas or messages you might get from hearing our conversation with Amy today. Perhaps it's something that you need to hear, or maybe you're a messenger for someone else. And invite Amy and myself to also tune in to to what our audience might need to hear from us today. And really get present for what is possible for us as well. And with your next inhale, feel yourself expand and open. Your heart is expanding, your chest is expanding, your mind is expanding. And with the next inhale and exhale, you may open your eyes with a great big smile. Amy, how was that meditation for you?
I needed that. That felt great.
And as you were doing that, what was called upon your heart?
The images that came to mind for me both involved family members, which maybe makes sense, just coming off of a week's vacation with my family. But yeah, just how important my immediate family is to me.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So I'm so excited to be talking to you today, and I'm sure our listeners are going to get such immense value from our conversation with you. So before we dive right in, I want to give a formal introduction of you. So, Amy Riley is an internationally renowned speaker, author, and consultant. She has over 2 decades of experience developing leaders at all levels. Her clients include Cisco Systems, Deloitte, and Google Drive. Amy earned a Master of Science in Training and Development with an emphasis in organization development from Loyola University in Chicago, Illinois. She's a certified professional behavior analyst, a certified Tiara International coach, and she's certified in the Myers-Briggs type instrument. Her new book is a #1 international bestseller and is entitled The Courage of a Leader: How to Inspire, Engage, and Get Extraordinary Results. So welcome again, Amy. So there's one thing that I see you need to correct in your bio, and that is to add that you are a 2 times #1 international best-selling author.
Yes, thank you to the recent launch of The Art of Leadership.
Yeah, so how does that feel now that you're a 2 times best-selling author?
That's exciting, and I was really hoping that all of us authors involved in launching The Art of Leadership could see that happen with this book. It was exciting to do it as a solo author, and it was really rewarding to do it as part of a group of authors, bringing varied perspectives and insights to the same topic.
Yeah, and that is a great point that you bring up, because many people think, okay, I have my solo book, I am set for at least next 10, 15, 20, maybe even a lifetime. And you did a solo book and it did so well. And I think your solo book has been picked up by SHRM, right?
It has, yes. Yes, it's part of their recertification program.
Yeah, and that is so huge. Congratulations for that. So for our listeners who may not know what SHRM is, can you give the full form and explain what that is?
Sure, the Society of Human Resource Management. They're the leading entity to professionally support human resource professionals, and they run the certification. They have a couple different levels of certification for human resource professionals. And I was also very honored that Johnny C. Taylor Jr., the president and CEO of SHRM right now, wrote the foreword for the book, The Courage of a Leader.
Wow, that is amazing. 20 years ago, I almost got my SHRM certification, but then I decided to get the Project Management Professional, the PMP certification instead. So I just want people to see, and our listeners to see, that is a huge accreditation to get something like that, because SHRM certification is not easy. You really have to go through, they have a whole intricate process to get that. So that is, I think they have different levels, and it's one of the highest level certification in the human resource professional industry. So that is amazing. So even after what inspired you to be part of our book, The Art of Leadership, Leading Confidently in Any Season, after you've had such a huge success in yours?
Why not do it again? No, the title and the purpose of the book drew me in. I do believe that leadership is a science and an art, and much more an art than a science, right? Because leadership has all to do with people, and people are complex and dynamic and wonderful and different and varied. And it just makes sense, I think, to have a number of authors bringing their varied expertise and perspectives to the subject. Right? So how can we lead confidently in any season? So to be a part of something that I just knew was going to be valuable when you get different minds bringing their best content forward about a topic.
And that was my intention too, because I think people are so much worried about, can I be like this person? Can I be like that person? And I feel the best form of a leader, or the best way you can be a great leader, is if you're being yourself. There's so much talk about becoming authentic, learning how to be authentic. And I think all you have to do is really be yourself and use what's naturally coming to you. Learn from other people, learn their best practices. But then I think we try to be so much of the technicalities that we lose the human aspect, and we lose what is unique about you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Seema.
Yeah. And so I thought, with bringing all these people together, talking about leadership and having their own views and being so successful in their area, it would give our readers a perspective to say, you know what? I really can be myself. I can learn from the best and make it my own, implement it in my own way, and still succeed. And the other thing I wanted to point out was that many people think that you have to have a huge following or work in a big corporate environment in order to be considered a leader. What are your thoughts around that?
Everyone is a leader, right? We all have the work we're trying to do in whatever area of life it is. We all have our sphere of influence, right? So how do we influence the people around us, the work that we're doing, the relationships that we have in the best ways that we know how? And everyone is a leader and can lead.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think many people, some of the people that I was talking to, they were like, I love it and I want to be in this book. I love the title, but I'm not a leader. And I think leadership really starts with self-leadership, right? How are you leading yourself? Leadership is about having a bigger vision, seeing how you can make an impact in the world with your gifts and talents, and then leading yourself to have those outcomes.
Yeah.
So what would you say to those people that are saying, I am not a leader because I don't have a following, or I may be a parent and I'm not working anymore, or I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm a solo entrepreneur? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah. I mean, maybe repeating what you're saying, Seema, is to know that we're all leaders in our lives, right? And it's not just because I have a director title at such and such organization, right? But we have an impact on all of the people in our lives. And I invite everyone, no matter what position they hold, and that can be community member, it can be parent, it can be neighbor, right? What kind of leadership legacy do you want to create and continually leave behind? And Seema, that can be anything that starts to sound kind of formal and corporate, yet I mean it to be anything that you want to be known for, or you want to create, you want to foster in the relationships and the communities that you're a part of. It could be bringing empathy to every conversation. It could be fostering creativity. It could be simplification, right? We need some of that in our lives, right? But it's like, what do you want to create, foster, bring to every interaction that you have? And it has us more powerfully interact in our lives.
And that is such a great way of looking from a totally different perspective, you know. And I would say to our listeners, bring a whole new dynamic to it, right? Mm-hmm. We have some definitions from like years ago, right? And it's probably a time for updating. So make it your own, and what it means to you, and bring that forth. Because like you're saying, fostering creativity, that is so needed now. And there's so much creativity out there. So I encourage our listeners to not really hold themselves back. Just explore. I mean, if we've learned anything from the pandemic, that is all we have is right now. Yeah. And all we have is this moment. So, and what we need is real, true, authentic leadership. People just coming out and having that empathy and sharing that part of them.
Yes, and it's leaning into what's already there for us.
Yeah.
Like you said, our innate gifts, and also our interests, our passion, right? Where those two intersect, that's the area of your leadership legacy. That's the authentic leadership to lean into and bring to our world.
Yes. So, Amy, what is the name of your chapter, and what do you hope that the readers gain from reading it?
Yes. The Courage of a Leader. Unleash the gold within yourself and your team for ultimate performance. And then the second part of the question was, what do I hope people gain from that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it ties into what we were just talking about. How to more fully live into your authentic leadership, right? Take those gifts and bring them powerfully to our world. And how do you encourage those around you to do the same?
Mm-hmm. That is something to really, really deeply look into that too. So you say courage of a leader. What is the courage of a leader?
Yes. Seema, I have been working to develop leaders at all levels for more than 2 decades now. And I have realized that every time I was impressed or inspired by a leader, they were demonstrating true inner courage. And I wanted to share those stories. I wanted to share this idea that we do the work in here, internally, in order to be able to transform and create the work out there. Mm-hmm. Right? And that there's that leadership is more about our beliefs and our intentions and the stepping forward in spite of concerns and fears, rather than robotically getting some set of behaviors exactly right.
Mm. Do you have a story that comes to your mind that is your favorite, that shows the courage of a leader?
Yeah, one that comes to mind. Well, there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is a production supervisor that I worked with. And he was working with an operator that he felt like he could not get this person on board. He needed to make some process changes in the area, and he was trying everything to get this person on board, getting their opinion, putting them in charge of the area, asking for their ideas, and like nothing was working, the operator would go back to doing it the original way. And I was working with this production supervisor, and he told me that he was totally frustrated, and that he couldn't get through to this operator. And I said, I get it. You've tried a lot. I said, now tell me really, what do you think about this operator? And he said immediately, Seema, something like, he's playing me, he's resentful I'm younger than him, and he's never going to get on board. And I said, I got it. You need to do some belief work. You've tried everything except shifting your outlook, your beliefs about this individual. And he looked at me, he got it, right? And he did the courageous work of looking at his own beliefs, his own assumptions, his own perspectives, and seeing how he could unravel them, loosen them in any way. And he got there, Seema. He went to the operator and he took ownership for and apologized for not fully acknowledging this operator's experience and time on the line, right? And he had all these plans to like back up, get the operator's input, change the timeline for the process improvement, implementation. And the operator said, that's all great. This is the only tweak I need you to make. This will make all the difference. I know from my experience, we need to do this piece of it this way. The production supervisor said, okay. And they moved forward with velocity. But it took that production supervisor getting quiet with himself, right, to think about, how do I need to think about and feel differently about this operator. And they got there, right? And that takes true courage. I also think of a leader who was changing the sales model, and there was resistance in the group to the new model. And she stood in front of the group and said, here's the direction that we're headed. I do not have this all figured out. I'm going to need everybody in this room to help figure this out. What I do know is that we have the expertise, the intelligence, the know-how, the creativity in this room to be able to do this. We're going to need to figure this out together. So being willing to be vulnerable like that and say, we're charging in this direction, and there's a lot I don't know about how this is going to go.
Those are great examples, Amy, because we usually don't look internally to see maybe there's something different that I need to do. We're always putting it external, right? This person needs to work in this way, or I need to have all the answers, and you don't have to. But admitting that, okay, maybe there's a different way of thinking for myself before I expect anyone else to change or do anything, that's a little bit harder. And I think that's in all relationships, whether you're at work, at home, or anything, right? You have to be comfortable enough to say, you know what, maybe it's me, or I don't know, and let's figure it out together.
Yes.
That's perfect. Perfect. Thank you for sharing those stories. So you said there are 4 secrets to unlock the gold within yourself and your team. I can't wait to hear those secrets.
We've been circling around many of them. The first secret is to leverage strengths. Right? The Gallup organization recently reported that employees who learn to use their strengths are 7.8% more productive. And then when you get the whole team using their strengths every day, the team is 38% more productive. We need that, right? Yes. Secret number 2 is be flexible. Right? We were just talking about that. How do we, as the leader, not have all the answers, right? But encourage others to bring the answers. I often say flexibility forwards action, rigidity creates resistance. Secret number 3, engage people's hearts, right? And the stories I just told demonstrate that, right? How do we, if we're going to get the emotion and the passion of others, right? They need to see emotion and passion and vulnerability in us, right? Admitting what we know and what we don't know, right? Willing to look at how we have to change. And then secret number 4, check your beliefs, right? Again, this idea that leadership is not about getting behaviors exactly right, but more about our mindset, our beliefs, what are our intentions for the people and the work.
Well, Amy, these secrets sound like you can actually use them in any scenario, right? It's great for leaders, but it sounds like it can be used in any scenario.
Yes. Well, coming back to the idea that we're leaders in all areas of our lives, right?
Yeah.
I found myself in a situation with one of the kids last night where I was having to check my beliefs.
If anyone knows how to test your beliefs, it's the kids, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think that's an interesting, if we think of ourselves as leaders in all aspects of our lives, then we can take lessons learned. And I know I've talked to many leaders who are parents, right, that we take lessons learned from parenting and bring it into the workplace, right? Or we take lessons learned from this kind of leadership position or experience and bring it to another one.
So this brings up an interesting question in my mind. Have you seen a difference between leaders before they were parents and after they became parents, or leaders who are not parents and leaders who are parents? Do you see a difference in the way they approach their leadership, in the way they handle situations?
That is an interesting question, because on the one hand, I believe, we all have our authentic leadership, and what we need to do is to uncover it, right? Just discover, bring awareness to what are my natural strengths, what are my natural interests, and how do I bring that forth in the world. Now, those that are parents, I think if they can see it's a real fruitful leadership playground, if you will, it's an area where our heads and our hearts are naturally involved, right? So if we bring the awareness there, what are we learning? What are we taking away? Then it can bring really rich perspectives and techniques. What I'm thinking about right now is we have 2 kids, and Seema, they could not be more different. Boy, girl, firstborn, lastborn, strengths, personality, like everything is different. And you learn as a parent. I remember we tried a technique that worked with our oldest daughter, and we tried it with our toddler son, and it failed epically. And we thought, oh gosh, we thought we had figured this out. But it's a different person. It's a different need, right? And then we need to know that in the workplace too.
Welcome to Break Free to Brilliance Podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you for another amazing episode. Today we have an amazing guest speaker. Today we have an amazing...
This is a fresh person. This is a fresh set of circumstances. And even right now, the pandemic has been affecting
Welcome to Break Free to Brilliance Podcast.
In profound ways.
This is Seema, your host for today.
Right, that person that you thought you knew and understood inside and out 2 years ago.
Welcome to Break Free to Brilliance Podcast. I'm so happy to be here with you for another amazing episode. I am your host, Seema Giri, and today we are being joined with
it's always a new game, a new endeavor,
co-author in our
getting to know
recently -- international bestselling book, The Art of Leadership.
That is so true. It's not one size fits all, and we certainly see that within our own family, especially children. You would think that they're coming from the same set of parents, same values, same upbringing, but their reaction and behavior and their own innate talent makes everything so different. And that's exactly what happens at work with the team. Now, you said, rightly so, that during the pandemic, so many things have changed. People have changed in profound ways. Do you see a change in the way people are leading now compared to before?
Yes, I do. I think it has become much more mainstream, much more accepted. I think many of us have been talking about it for decades, about how we need to give attention to individuals and talk about thoughts and feelings and well-being and how people are doing. Now that has really been in our faces, right? As we had lockdowns and some people were feeling very isolated and alone. Other people were dealing with two working parents trying to take care of kids when they couldn't take them to daycare or school. Like, everyone's concerns, circumstances became intense and became very different. Right? So this idea that we need to tune into each individual, give them attention, find out what they need. What are their interests? What works for them? What are their concerns? Right? When the pandemic first started, so many people asked me, how do we lead in the pandemic? And Seema, part of me wanted to say, the way we always have. Like, pay attention to your people, have the conversations, ask them the questions, find out how they're doing, connect with them on a human level. Now, of course, in person versus virtual, there's different techniques and tools that we need to use to do that. But I just think it's more important than ever before. And keep checking in on people.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like you do it in January and then you're done with that until June. Right? How are people doing this week? How are people doing today? What do they need? How do you support them to bring their best leadership into our world?
I love that. Bringing in more of the human side and asking how they're doing and questions and keep checking in on more regular basis than you would have ordinarily. And that is so true, right? Because at the end of the day, with how life is moving so fast, so everything is so fast paced, that we forget about the being part of human. And we're just human robots or human just automated in doing things in such a habitual way that we forget about the being and saying, hey, how are you doing? You know, how are things with you?
Yes. And when there's a lot to do, it's so easy to get into the doing, and being focused on that. And that's actually when we need the being the most.
Yes. So listeners, I would encourage you to check in with yourself and see what kind of a leader are you being right now, and what are the things that you may need to add on, or what are the things that you're already doing that's wonderful. Maybe you have a unique perspective. So when you're listening to this podcast, I would love for you to mention in the comments, what are things that you have been doing that has worked really well? You know, we learned from our listenership as well, and it's great to get different perspective and different ideas. So definitely do share that with us, and also let us know what are one of the tips things that we've been saying and Amy has been saying that you find interesting, and maybe you've implemented something like that already. So let us know how that has worked out as well. Amy, I want to talk about balance, because, you know, that's always a struggle, finding the right balance, especially now with the pandemic, with everyone working from home. Now, I personally see you having the right balance. I see you taking time off. I see you spending time with your family. And I see you doing personal things for you. And now, I'm saying this from the best intent and with heart. But I've seen you, like, you're running 100-mile marathons. And I can't understand why anybody would want to do a 100-mile marathon. I just got started into marathon, right? In 2021, I did my first 10K. I was like, okay, this is doable. Then I did the 13-mile, the half marathon, and I can't understand why I would do a full marathon. So I would love to hear that from you.
Yeah, it sounds very reasonable, Seema, to not want to take on a 100-mile race. Yeah, I am fueled by taking on big goals, right? Like, why write a book? Why be a part of the art of leadership? Why run a 100-mile race? I enjoy being on a journey. And I know that there's going to be a lot of like exciting milestones to hit. I know there's going to be a lot of breakdowns and learning that happens as well. I do know that it helps build my resilience over time and shift my perspective on what really is a problem. Yeah, I mean, I've been in a triathlon Ironman race and had 4 flat tires and not be able to finish, like after training for that race for a year. You see these breakdowns and you learn a lot about yourself and how you deal with them and how you get back up. And I love the courage that takes. One of the most exciting parts of the process for me is when you're at a start line, and I don't know everybody's story, but I know everybody has a story. Everybody has done something to get themselves to that start line, right? They've pushed themselves beyond what they thought was possible. They've got something on the line for that day. And I find that super inspiring. But you also asked about balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need to shift the perspective to integration, right? Like, how do we integrate the different pieces of our lives? And also looking at balance in a bigger picture view. Are there days of my life that are out of balance? For sure, right? If we're going to live a full life, if we're going to take on a variety of stuff, there are going to be days that it's not in balance. Yet, when we take the view wider and we look at a week or we look at a month, right, how does the balance feel at that time? I know when I was in the peak of training for a 100-mile race, there were friends that I hadn't been in touch with as often as I would like, right? Now I'm not in intense training. I'm reaching out more, right? How do we look at the balance that we want in our lives in a bigger picture view?
I love some of the key points that you made. One is that it's integration. It's not either or kind of a thing. It's integration. And I've been, for the last 1+ years, I've been saying this. It's not you don't have to choose between ors. You can add the and. It's, being a leader and whatever else you want. And that and side can be a longer list. So you don't have to choose anymore. You can have whatever, like you said, fuels you. This fuels you. 100 miles fuels you, and doing all of that. And what an example you're setting for everyone around you. I love that you are living what you are, I'm going to say preaching, practice what you're preaching, and preaching in a very positive way, that you're living by example, you're leading by example, and showing the world that, yes, I have a husband, showing the world and women specifically that you have a family, you have a husband, you have a business, and you're doing other things that is fueling you, some with family, some alone, and you're the example of possibly having it all. And I know it's not always easy. There are times that, like you said, you have your milestone, your ups and downs. Having 4 flat tires, I mean, I bet you were kicking the tires at that point. I'm like, what the hell? But
I was changing the tube, and the tears were coming down. Like, oh my gosh, this is falling apart today.
yeah, and persevering and building that resiliency, and that's what it's about. It's about stepping into the unknown, into the uncertainty, see what happens, and the learning and the growth is so amazing. And I don't know if many people know my story, but becoming a publisher and book writing mentor was not part of my overall plan. I didn't even know these things existed. And I thought people who write books are much, much, much smarter than me. And I still believe that. But I didn't think I was even at that level, right? So as you go through your journey, and I believe that what you're meant to do somehow comes to you. For some people, it's sooner in their life. For some people, it's later in their life. But I read Shonda Rhimes' book, The Year of Yes. And she said that she used to say no to so many things. And she started thinking, someone pointed out that you say no to so many things. And she stopped and to think and say, I do say no to a lot of things. And a lot of things to what you wanted to do, but didn't think it was possible. So she decided that she was going to say yes to things that scare her, especially yes to things that scare her the most. So I thought, I went into my thing. It's like, this is really great. This is what I should be doing. Then I went into my story of, what? She's a famous person. She's got all the resources. She can't say yes to stuff. I got myself out of that mindset and said, I'm going to say yes to things that really scare me. And as I started to say yes, all these opportunities opened up and I was able to step into. I did not know what I was doing. I did not know how to do it, but I found people who wanted to mentor me and support me in this new area. And Amy, I never thought in 18 months I would write 4 #1 international bestseller books and bringing on 50 plus authors to that level too.
Amazing. What keeps popping into my head as you're talking, Seema, and I'm getting inspired by everything you're saying, is that ordinary people can do extraordinary things.
Yes.
I mean, I finished a 100-mile race. Seema, I am not an elite athlete, right? I mean, talking about marathons, I'm a middle of the pack marathoner at best, right? But we're ready for what we're trained for. We step into what we commit ourselves to, and whatever that might be for you, right? It might not be becoming a producer and an author. It might not be, being a speaker, running 100-mile races. But whatever grabs your fancy, right? Whatever's worth committing to in your world, go for it.
Yeah, and that's how I would like to end the show by asking the listeners to really look into what is it that they're really saying no to, and how has that affected their life so far. Let 2022 be the year where you start saying yes to you. And when you start saying yes, I guarantee you, and I bet you Amy will too, that you will be stepping more into your power. You'll be shining your brilliance, and you'll allow that innate gift to surface up, come out, and you will really start enjoying life even more. It's not going to be easy at all times, but I bet you your life up to now has already had several ups and downs. And we've already been through the pandemic together, so we know you're resilient. We know you can do it. So just say yes to yourself. If you need permission, Amy and I are both giving you permission to do that. Sometimes we need to hear that. So if you need that, if you're that person, we are blessing you with our permission to go ahead and step into your power and grab that. Who knows what that's going to be? And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. But at least take that action. And in honor of our next upcoming anthology, Amy, The Brighter Side of the Pandemic, I want to ask you, what is the brighter side of the pandemic for you?
There, resilience, right? I've had to completely change how my work looks. I'm in this office nearly all the time now, where I used to travel 3-4 times a month in front of groups of co-facilitators. And yeah, being able to make all the adjustments inside myself and in the structures in order to make that happen. Connection with family, right? We have some really fun and unique memories that we'll never forget from, lockdown and just figuring things out as a family. How do we navigate this? We just took an international trip and got that done with negative tests on either side, right? But that took a lot of talking and connecting and figuring things out together. So resilience, connection with family.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Amy, you're such an inspiration to me and so many people. Keep doing what you're doing, and thank you so much for being part of the book, The Art of Leadership, Leading Confidently in Any Season. You guys, you can, we'll be putting Amy's contact information in the show notes, so be sure to get that, and be sure to check out the book. It's available on Kindle as well as paperback. So whatever is the best way for you to read, please do get that. And Amy, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you, Seema. This has really raised my energy today.
Wonderful. And to our listeners, until next time, this is Seema.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Break Free to Brilliance podcast. I hope you enjoyed our time together. I know I did. Through this transformational journey, I hope you can see yourself taking similar steps, breaking free to your brilliance, and creating the life that you desire. Be sure to subscribe to Break Free to Brilliance wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow along with us on social media using the links in the show notes below. We'll see you again for next week's episode.